So let's start with the first one then. How was the month of the KW?
You know what? The month of August, which is the stats, our most current stats that we're looking at right now, it's reflecting exactly, what we expected the summer market to be, which is a little bit slower. A lot of people are away on vacations. They've went back to their homeland. They're taking time up at the cottage. They're going up north. They're not here necessarily all looking at real estate, especially the move-up buyer sector, the people that are already living in a home and they're transitioning to their next home. So, that's something that we did expect coming into the summer for the sales to cool down. And that's exactly what happened. The sales were down overall 5% in terms of, activity this year versus last year. And the nice thing about the summer market is that we predicted that it was going to happen. There was nothing unpredictable there. And they did have a rate drop in the summer, but it's like having the best sale in the world. If nobody's there to buy your product, then it doesn't really matter how good your sale is. And, that's an extreme example of, the lowering of the rates and the impact that it had on the market. It was just a quick shot in the arm. It just boosted sales for maybe a week or two, but then we went back to a kind of cooler summer market. Now, homes were still moving. Time on the market was still around 25 days, which is, a little bit longer than usual, but not dramatically longer. It's only a few days over the average. So now coming into the fall market, we do expect the market to pick up. It's when you kind of get past that Labor Day weekend, all of a sudden it's back to school. People have a fall mentality, pumpkin spice lattes everywhere. So it's kind of like that type of market that now puts people into a different frame of mind that we're coming out of the summer. And of course, their behavior is reflective of that in the real estate market with what they do.
Okay, and just to touch on that, let's go over like prices. Were prices kind of still all over the place? Were they a little bit more steady? What were you seeing?
Well, what we did find is overall pricing year over year did drop a little bit. And a lot of that just had to do with the longer it takes for a home to sell, quite often the more the buyer is going to negotiate the price. And therefore, the eventual selling price is quite often less than what the seller had expected, not dramatically. I mean, we were still seeing sales, very close to asking price, in some cases above asking price, but we're still seeing property kind of linger on the market a little bit longer than expected. And of course, the longer a property sits, the more, like I said, the more the seller tends to be flexible on their price. But the average sale price across the region for all homes, whether it's a detached home, a semi, or a townhouse, and including apartment-style condos, we were looking at around $769,000. So, I mean, we're still on average a mid-sevens kind of region. Now, if somebody's looking for a detached home, you're looking very close to $900,000. You're looking at the very high eights. I believe the number was about $889,000 for a detached home across the region on average. So, I mean, that itself is slightly down from last year. Just, it's a summer market. I mean, it's doing exactly what we expected it to do. Average townhouse is about $611,000. The average semi was $654,000. So that's kind of a breakdown of where the prices are. They're not dramatically different this year versus last year, or this month versus last month. We're not seeing these types of jumps just yet.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So let's go over what's it looking like. I mean, you kind of said that fall is usually a little bit of a slowdown. Are you expecting like a major slowdown, or are people going to still be waiting for the Bank of Canada to come up and say like, hey, another rate cut here? Well,
the summer's usually the slower market. There's usually two peak times in the year. One is, of course, springtime. The other one is fall. Fall doesn't quite hit the same numbers as springtime. Summer falls slightly behind fall in terms of peak time in the market. So we are coming into the fall market, which we do expect it to be fairly strong. The next 60 days, as long as the snow stays off the ground, as long as the sun is out, and as long as the rates keep dropping or at least stay competitive, or at least if there's rumors of rates coming down, that still gives buyers confidence to come into the market. And we just had a rate drop at the beginning of September, and that certainly did put us onto the right foot coming into the fall market. So I do expect the next 45 to 60 days to be fairly strong. It's once you get to the other end of November and the Christmas music hits and, people start thinking more festivities and it gets dark at 4 o'clock, it's very hard for people to want to go out there looking at houses. Most of the showings take place after 5 o'clock when people are done work. But when it gets dark outside at 4 o'clock and it's a little bit colder and there's even snow on the ground, it's hard to get people excited to go out there and looking at houses. So we expect the next 60 days to be fairly strong, perhaps until the end of November. At that point, we'll probably see it slow down for December, January, maybe even the first week or so of February. Then perhaps it'll start to, peak up a little bit again before we get into a full-fledged spring market right around March break, just after March break.
Okay, excellent. And people are powered by the sun, it seems.
It seems to be. Vitamins, I guess it's vitamin D. It gets people out there buying real estate.
Okay, is there any last thoughts or anything that you want to touch on that we didn't?
Well, you know what? I would leave the audience with this, that it has been a, predictable year in the sense of there hasn't been anything that's been unpredictable where we're like, oh my God, where did that come from? It's very similar in trends in terms of if you're looking at it from a line graph perspective, it's very similar to last year. Prices are roughly the same. The peak times are roughly about the same. The low times are about the same. So I do believe coming into the end of the year, if we do have another rate drop or two, that's going to put us into a pretty strong position come springtime, because there have been rumors about additional rate cuts coming up by the end of the year. And of course, if people are, getting a much more competitive rate coming into the new year, then all of a sudden we could see an early start to the spring market, depending on inventory. But I do expect next year prices to be, getting pretty strong in the springtime. Multiple offers, bidding wars, that type of thing. Now, we are seeing that today. We are seeing some, listings come to the market with a bidding war strategy. We are still seeing homes going over asking price. Just not quite seeing the springtime jumps, but it is a reflection of the buyer demand is back and supply is still there's still options out there, especially for first-time home buyers. But once you kind of get to that, person that's looking to move from their townhouse up to a detached home, all of a sudden it gets very competitive there.
Okay, and actually you just touched on something that I want to ask you. Do you think the new home buyer federal assistance program with a 30-year amortization, and do you think that's going to help home sales going into that spring market?
I'm not sure exactly if that's going to help spring market sales. I do think that will make the overall payments involved for people's mortgages a bit more palatable. So I think it will bring some comfort in the sense of, okay, I'm not paying, $3,500 for my mortgage. I'm paying $3,200. Those $300 make a tremendous difference. So I do think it will give people a bit more confidence after they've made their decision, but I don't necessarily think it will influence people wanting to get into the market or not.